are present as well. We are outside the presence of the jury. Mr. Orman, you were standing up.
I wanted to inquire of the court whether it be possible to take a shorter lunch break today. We lost some court time the day before yesterday due to issues that were beyond any of our control, and we have a lot of witnesses, and I was just wondering if we could do an hour instead of an hour and a half for lunch today.
Is that okay with the defense?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. King is saying sure, so that's good enough for me. I will ask the jury and see if we can take an hour instead of an hour and a half, okay? Before the jury comes in, and the record should reflect that we are outside the presence of the jury, here's the instruction that I drafted. Members of the jury, a few weeks ago, I gave you an instruction.
That's me, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Members of the jury, a few weeks ago, I gave you an instruction with respect to testimony provided in response to a question posed to several witnesses. The question was whether the defendant appeared to be detached from reality. I instructed you that any answers by lay witnesses to that question should be understood by you as referring only to those witnesses' observations of the defendant's demeanor or behavior. Those witnesses were not qualified as expert witnesses and were not permitted to render any opinions of any kind, including about the defendant's mental health. Similarly, Ms. Data is not an expert witness and may not render any opinions of any kind, including about the defendant's mental health. Any testimony from her regarding the defendant's demeanor or behavior should be understood by you solely as being testimony of her observations. And of course, it is up to you to decide what weight, if any, to give to the evidence. Any objection from the people?
No, Your Honor.
All right, any objection from you, Ms. Brady?
Judge, perhaps I'm wrong, but I don't recall Mr. Brockler asking Ms. Dada if she was detached, if she thought Mr. Holmes was detached from reality.
He did not, but he asked if the defendant, if she noticed crazy speech or something along those lines, or if he was speaking crazy.
Right.
And it's the word crazy that got my attention and what triggered the thought in my mind that it may be appropriate to provide an instruction. I don't want to repeat that, but if you prefer that I repeat that, I can do that instead. It seemed to me that this is sort of the same topic that I've talked to the jury before, and I think it would make sense to them that it's the same sort of concept, that when a late witness says something about detachment from reality or anything along the lines of crazy talk, that this is not an opinion, that it's an observation. So this was the best way that I could do it, but if you want me to specify the answer about crazy talk, I'm happy to do that.
Can the court read the first part in the instruction again?
Yes. Members of the jury, a few weeks ago, I gave you an instruction with respect to testimony provided in response to a question posed to several witnesses. The question was whether the defendant appeared to be detached from reality. I instructed you that any answers by lay witnesses to that question should be understood by you as referring only to those witnesses' observations of the defendant's demeanor or behavior. Those witnesses were not qualified as expert witnesses and were not permitted to render any opinions of any kind, including about the defendant's mental health. Similarly, Ms. Data is not an expert witness and may not render any opinions of any kind, including about the defendant's mental health. Any testimony from her regarding the defendant's demeanor or behavior should be understood by you solely as being testimony of her observations. So is that okay with you? And then I will add that it is up to you to decide what way to give every witness's testimony.
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Okay. All right, one final thing before I bring the jury in. Yesterday, when I ruled on the admissibility of People's Exhibit P-TR-649, which is the GChat exhibit that the jury just reviewed, I referred to Dr. Metzner's testimony, and I think I may have misspoken about the March 25 GChat, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but in case I misspoke, Dr. Metzner, as I recall his testimony, and the record will reflect exactly what he said, but as I recall his testimony, Dr. Metzner said that the March 25, 2012 GChat or Google Chat was, for him, the first manifestation of the human capital belief delusion. And then he said, as I understood his testimony, that there may have been two triggers for that delusion. One was a decline in the defendant's school, and the other one was the defendant's failed relationship with his girlfriend. And he said it was also possible that there were no triggers at all, and this was just sort of the natural progression of the defendant's mental illness. And so I wanted to make sure that was clear, because he did not say that the March 25 GChat was a trigger. It's actually, I think for him, this was the first manifestation of the what he opined is a delusion, and that is the human capital belief. So I wanted to make sure the record was clear. To the extent I misspoke, the record is corrected. And of course, the record will reflect exactly what it is that Dr. Metzner said. All right, is there anything else at this time on behalf of the people before I bring the jury in?
No, sir.
Is there anything on behalf of the defense?
No.
Okay. All right, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Members of the jury, first a scheduling issue or question. Is it okay with you if we take 1 hour for lunch to make up a little bit of the time from this morning? Is there anyone in the jury who's not okay with just a 1 hour lunch? All right, nobody's raising their hand. Great. I appreciate that. Before we proceed with the cross-examination of Ms. Data by Ms. Brady, let me give you an instruction. A few weeks ago, I gave you an instruction with respect to testimony provided in response to a question posed to several witnesses. The question was whether the defendant appeared to be detached from reality. Do you remember that instruction? And everyone's saying yes, and nodding their head yes. The question... I instructed you that any answers by lay witnesses to that question should be understood by you as referring only to those witnesses' observations of the defendant's demeanor or behavior. Those witnesses were not qualified as expert witnesses and were not permitted to render any opinions of any kind, including about the defendant's mental health. Similarly, Ms. Data is not an expert witness and may not render any opinions of any kind, including about the defendant's mental health. Any testimony from Ms. Data regarding the defendant's demeanor or behavior should be understood by you solely as being testimony of her observations. It is up to you to decide what weight, if any, to give to each witness's testimony. Does everyone understand all that?
Yes.
And everybody's saying yes. Great. With that instruction in mind, then, we'll proceed with the cross-examination of Ms. Data. Is Ms. Data present? Yes. Ms. Data, you may resume the witness stand. I remind you that you're still under oath. And Ms. Brady, you may proceed with your cross-examination.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Nervous?
I understand. Ms. Dada, so you and Mr. Holmes, you were boyfriend and girlfriend for a while, right?
Yes.
And when you were his girlfriend at that time, you didn't call him the defendant, right?
No.
What did you call him?
James.
James. And the first time that you met James Holmes was at the new student orientation in August of 2011?
Yes.
And what you remember most about him was that he was wearing some bright blue sunglasses?
Yes.
And he was sitting at a table with you and other folks, and you remember that he didn't say very much.
Yes.
He seemed sort of quiet.
Yes.
And do you remember anything else about him at that orientation?
No.
Okay. You had a class with him then in the fall of 2011.
Yes.
And which class was that again?
The core classes, I don't remember the exact name, but the core biology classes.
And so they were a little bit bigger with, I think you said 60 or 70 students in them?
Yes.
Okay. And at the beginning of the class, you were sitting regularly with Ben Garcia, Tim Tapscott, and I think you said Charlotte?
Yes.
And did Mr. Holmes sit behind you guys at the time?
From what I remember.
Okay. You decided to start talking to him, is that right?
I don't remember who talked to whom first, but
Okay, do you remember speaking with an FBI agent by the name of Rachel Pfeiffer?
yes.
And she talked to you on July 24th of 2012, so like 4 days after this all happened?
Yes.
And do you remember telling her that you were the one who decided to start talking to James Holmes?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once you started talking to him, he seemed nice,
Yes.
he seemed intelligent,
Yes.
but he did seem somewhat closed off.
Yes.
And you were a little bit attracted to him and decided to invite him to a study group.
Yes.
In fact, Ben Garcia teased you that if you didn't start talking to him and introduce yourself to him, that Ben was going to tell James that you liked him.
Yes.
So you invited him to this study group, and it sort of went from there.
Yes.
Once you got to know him, you confirmed that he was pretty smart,
Yes.
but he was very introverted and shy.
Yes.
You were the one who asked him out on a date in mid-October of 2011, correct?
Again, I don't remember who asked whom. It could have been me.
Okay. And when you spoke to Agent Pfeiffer on July 24th of 2012, do you recall telling her that you were the one who asked James Holmes out?
I don't remember, but if I said that, then that's true. Yeah.
Okay. And so you guys started dating around mid-October, as you stated earlier.
Yes.
When you first started dating James Holmes, you told him that you just sort of wanted a casual dating relationship.
Yes.
And so you told him that sort of right off the bat into the relationship.
Yes.
As you spent time with him, as you told Mr. Brockler, you found out that he did have somewhat of a sense of humor,
Yes.
and you found his sense of humor to be self-deprecating.
Yes.
And by that, he sort of would make fun of himself at times.
Yeah.
And his humor, you testified, was a little awkward and sometimes fell flat.
Yes.
While you guys were dating, you would be alone with him at certain times, and other times would be with Ben Garcia and Tim Tapscott.
Yes.
And was that sort of your core group of friends, James, Ben, and Tim, and you?
Yes.
Okay. And you guys would do stuff like watch Netflix movies,
Yes.
play cards,
Yes.
go for long drives,
Yes.
go out to eat.
Yes.
There was also There was a time while you guys were dating where Mr. Holmes brought you a Slurpee while you were studying. And now there's also mention of Slurpee in those messages. When you talk about Slurpees, are you talking about those slushy drinks from like 7-Eleven?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us about the time that Mr. Holmes brought you a Slurpee while you were studying?
I don't remember a lot, but I believe I must have had some exam or something, so I was studying and he came over and brought a Slurpee, yeah.
Okay, so that was an example of him doing something kind for you?
Yes.
And sometimes you and James would go out alone, and sometimes you were with those other friends.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Holmes did not like going out to bars, did he?
No, he didn't.
And if you and the other friends were going out to the bar, sometimes Mr. Holmes just would pass. He wouldn't even go.
Yes.
You came to learn that Mr. Holmes wanted a future in academia.
I don't remember, but yeah.
Okay. Do you remember whether you told Agent Pfeiffer that Mr. Holmes wanted a future in teaching and research?
He wanted to do research, that's why he was doing a PhD, I'd assume. I do not remember my statement, but if I told her, I must have remembered at that point. Yeah.
Okay. And you also had the sense that Mr. Holmes wanted to settle down.
He at some point mentioned buying a house in the Denver area.
Okay. And you were not ready to settle down into some sort of relationship like that, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. It was your impression that Mr. Holmes never really opened up completely to you.
Yes.
And he was not inclined to make new friends.
I think so.
You think that's correct?
Yes.
Okay. He did not let people into his life easy. He didn't trust people.
Yes.
And you felt that his idea of life was weird.
I don't know what you're asking, I guess. Yeah.
Do you remember telling Agent Pfeiffer that you thought Mr. Holmes's idea of life was weird?
I don't remember, but yeah.
Did you think it was weird the way he viewed life?
I mean, he wanted to settle down in graduate school and buy a house, which to me is a bit extravagant.
Okay. He also told you that he had what he called stage fright.
Yes.
And despite that he had stage fright, you did believe that he was doing well in his core classes, the classes where you go for the lectures, right?
Yes.
He talked to you a bit about his mother.
Yes.
And he said that she was sweet and nurturing, and he really respected his mother.
Yes.
And
Yes. The objection is sustained.
Ms. Donna, Mr. Brockler asked you during direct examination whether it was your belief that you were Mr. Holmes's first girlfriend or not. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Mr. Holmes only told you about one prior sexual experience he had had prior to you, correct?
yes,
And that was when he was a camp counselor during college?
yes,
And it was your impression that experience had gone badly for him?
yes,
Other than that, you knew of no other prior girlfriends or relationships he'd ever had with,
we never talked about prior relationships.
except for that one?
Oh, we talked about when he lost his virginity.
Okay. Now, at some point, you said that you told Mr. Holmes that you thought he should see a therapist,
Yes,
and he agreed, right?
yes,
He recognized that he had issues,
yes,
and you were aware that he started seeing Dr. Fenton.
yes,
And you guys didn't describe in detail what happened during his therapy sessions, right?
no, we didn't.
You became aware that he was prescribed some medication
Yes,
and that he was taking antidepressants and beta blockers.
something like that. Yeah,
Do you remember telling Agent Pfeiffer on July 24th of 2012 that Mr. Holmes was prescribed antidepressants and beta blockers?
if I told her then, I probably remembered then.
Probably
so-
remembered at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Holmes knew that he was socially awkward.
Yes,
He was embarrassed by the attention he got from being socially awkward.
yes,
It was your belief that Mr. Holmes tried to be cool during his presentations at school.
yes,
And the one presentation that you saw in mid-May was pretty bad, right?
extremely awkward.
Okay. The content of that presentation was lacking, in your opinion?
Not neuroscience, and I do not remember what the content was. I don't even remember the topic of the presentation, so.
Fair enough. Do you remember speaking to Investigator Heelan from the District Attorney's Office on January 19th of this year?
Yeah,
Do you remember telling Investigator Heelan that the content of the presentation was lacking?
yeah,
Okay. So at that time, do you think you remembered that the content was lacking?
I believe what I mean by content lacking is that there wasn't enough content versus, yeah.
Okay. And he was not good at presenting?
No, he wasn't.
You felt like he was just reading off of the slides and not looking or interacting with the audience?
Not engaging the audience.
Mr. Holmes was never outwardly aggressive with you?
No,
He was never violent with you?
no,
You testified that you were aware that he at times had difficulty sleeping
yes,
and that he would alternate between insomnia and excessive sleeping.
yes,
It was your thought that he was depressed.
he was sad about his rotations not going well.
And it was your impression he was depressed.
That's what I meant by depressed.
Okay. While you knew him, he never showed any interest in guns or weapons.
Not at all.
In fact, there was one incident where your friend Tim Tapscott wanted to go look at guns to purchase one.
Yes,
And you and Ben and James and I think Tim all went to the store and Tim was going to look at some guns.
yes,
And it was your impression that Mr. Holmes had absolutely no interest in looking at the guns.
yes,
In fact, you went off to look at some fishing equipment and Mr. Holmes went with you to look at fishing stuff.
yes,
He was never the kind of guy who wanted to stand out in a crowd.
Yes, he wasn't, I mean.
He was not very responsive when people would communicate with him.
He was nice to people, but he wasn't forthcoming with information.
Okay. And he wouldn't just go up and start a conversation with someone?
Not usually, no.
Okay. In fact, you felt like you sort of had to spell out to him very clearly how it was you felt about him.
Yes,
That he wasn't picking up on vibes or social cues.
yes.
It was, I think you said right after sort of the Christmas holiday break where you started thinking about breaking up with Mr. Holmes?
Yes,
And you went to him and told him that the relationship wasn't going anywhere and that you wanted to break up.
yes,
It was your impression that Mr. Holmes liked you more than you liked him at that point.
yes,
And even though he had talked about settling down and getting a house, he had never asked you to move in with him.
no, he hadn't.
You just felt like he was sort of in a different place than you were.
In life, yes.
You said during direct examination that you were unaware that Mr. Holmes had mono.
Yes.
Did you ever tell Tim Tapscott that Mr. Holmes had mono?
No, I did not know he had mono.
There are references in those G-chats, though, to Mr. Holmes being sick during January.
End of January.
Okay. So you were still going out with him by Valentine's Day, right?
Yes,
And we know that because you remember the dinner that Mr. Holmes made for you?
yes,
He baked a chicken.
yes,
He got some shrimp.
yes,
He had some candles.
yes,
And he made an effort to have a nice Valentine's Day, and you felt guilty because you knew that you were about to break up with him.
yes,
You were trying to sort of put some distance between you and him.
yes,
And it was at the end of February where you actually broke up with him.
around the end of February.
Okay. You thought that James was sort of taken aback by the breakup.
I don't think he was expecting it when I went over and told him.
Okay. He was quiet and didn't say much.
Yeah,
He looked disappointed.
yes.
He did not get angry.
No, he did not.
You guys agreed to stay friends.
Yes,
And you said earlier, approximately a week later, you decided to be what Mr. Brockler termed friends with benefits.
yes,
Does that mean that you guys can still get together intimately and sexually, but you won't be considered boyfriend-girlfriend?
yes,
So there was a period of time, let's just call it March, is that fair, where you guys were friends with benefits?
yes,
Was it during March, during that friends with benefits time, where Mr. Holmes for the first time told you he loved you?
somewhere around them. I don't exactly remember when.
Okay. And it was during March where at the St. Patrick's Day bar, Mr. Holmes referred to you as his girlfriend.
Yes,
And that sort of broke the rules of the friends with benefits,
yes,
because you weren't supposed to be his girlfriend,
I wasn't his girlfriend.
but you guys were still getting together intimately.
Yes,
It was toward the end of March where you get that G-chat from Mr. Holmes about the human capital.
yes,
And that was, you said, the first and only time you had heard him talk like that.
yes,
Prior to that, he had never said anything delusional, in your words, something irrational that didn't make sense.
no, he hadn't.
And after you got that G-chat, you told Ben, hey, take a look at this. This is kind of weird, right?
Yes,
And you guys told James that he should talk to his therapist about that
We
idea?
asked him if he was talking to his therapist about that.
And he said that he was.
Yes.
And you believe it was like the first week of April where James contacted you and said he couldn't do the just be friends thing anymore, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it was your impression he wanted to be more than friends, but you did not want to be more than friends?
Yes.
Okay. So he said, I can't do this anymore, it's over.
He said something along the lines of, I can't be just friends anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at the same time, because you and Ben are such good friends, he broke off his friendship with Ben as well?
I would believe so. I'm not sure though.
Okay. And that's, I think you've narrowed it down to like April 3rd or 4th approximately?
Around April 2nd, because either it was the day of my rotation talk or the day after.
Okay, so approximately April 2nd.
Yes.
After the April 2nd phone call where James Holmes breaks it off, you're still seeing him in class when you go to class.
Yes.
And you would say hello to him, but he would not respond.
I don't remember.
Do you remember telling Agent Pfeiffer on July 24th, 2012, after the breakup, you would say hi to him in class and he would not respond?
It was 4 years ago now, so if I said that to her, that's true, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last time you saw him was on May 18th, which was the last day of class.
Last day of class, yes.
It was your impression that the first lab rotation went well for Mr. Holmes,
Yes.
but the second rotation was not going well.
Yes.
You knew that he had some anxiety issues?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that you didn't have very much interaction at all with Mr. Holmes from April 2nd on?
Yes, it's fair to say.
Okay, you never went out with him again or really had any more
No, I
interaction?
didn't have any conversations really with him.
Okay. You felt like after he saw Dr. Fenton and began taking the medication, you testified that you thought he loosened up more?
He was talking to people more easily.
Okay. And it was your observation that Mr. Holmes liked himself, but he knew he was not normal?
He was quiet and socially awkward, so he wasn't normal in that way.
Okay. Because he was very closed off.
Yes.
Your Honor, if I can show Ms. Dada D-TR-7, which is a photograph which has already been admitted into evidence.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Dada, did you see Mr. Holmes on television or in the newspaper when he looked like how he looks in Defense Exhibit 7?
Yeah, in 2011.
Right. And had you ever seen him looking like this when you knew him?
No,
I'm sorry, she said 2011.
2012, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's easy to mix up. 2012, you saw this picture?
Yes.
And did he ever look like this with the big, wide, dilated eyes
No,
when you were going out with him?
no,
How about the red hair?
no.
Your Honor, if I can approach Ms. Dada with D-TR-58.
Yes.
Ms. Dada, do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
And what is it?
I believe it was, we were, four of us, me, Tim Tapscott, Ben Garcia, and him were on a hike at Dinosaur Ridge, I believe, and this was a photo taken there.
Okay, and who's in the photograph?
James?
And you?
Yes.
And is that how you guys looked when you were going out in sort of late 2011, early 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move to admit D-TR-58.
All right, without objection, it is admitted and it may be published.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dada.
Mr. Brockler, do you have any redirect?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you. Ms. Dada, what's the most stressed you had ever seen the defendant prior to the beginning of April when you broke up?
I don't exactly remember, but it would have to be before a rotation talk or something.
Can we put up that defense exhibit with the 4 pictures of him in the orange hair, please? Had you ever seen the defendant after he tried to murder a theater full of people?
Overruled.
Had you?
No.
Had you ever seen the defendant in court facing numerous counts of murder and attempted murder?
Overruled.
No.
Thank you. I want to ask you about something else. Miss Brady clarified that you didn't really have any contact outside of the classroom with the defendant after approximately April the 2nd. You remember that?
Yes.
Is that why you don't have any idea whether or not he changed any hygiene practices after April?
Yes. I knew him before April.
Did he appear to you to be the same person during that period of
Yes.
time? The presentation you were asked about, and it was awkward. Given your familiarity with the defendant and your observations of him in public, was it an unexpected performance?
No.
You were asked about the time that in that G chat from March 25th that the defendant brought up human capital. Do you recall that conversation?
Yes.
Do you recall ever, either in that chat or at any other time, telling the defendant that you thought his thoughts were socially acceptable?
No.
We've had a lot of talk about his being quiet and socially awkward. You've spent a long time in the science field and in grad school with other scientists. Is that fair?
Yes.
Is he the only guy like that?
No, there are other people like that.
The gun shop talk that you had with Miss Brady about him showing any interest in guns when you went shopping. Do you recall where you went shopping?
Maybe Outdoor World, but I'm not sure. Outdoor World?
Was that before or after you broke up with him and he felt like he had done poorly in his rotation?
I don't remember when it was.
But it was with Tim Tapscott.
Tim Tapscott and Ben Garcia, I believe.
Let's do this. Do you remember when Tim really kind of stopped hanging out with the group?
Sometime in February or March.
Okay, thank you. You were asked also about a statement that you had previously made about the defendant thinking well of himself, but thinking that he had something wrong with him related to the social anxiety. Do you remember
Yes.
that? In that same area where you were indicating information, do you remember indicating who or what the defendant valued above everything else?
Objection, speculation.
The question is asking whether she remembers indicating that. So it's not calling for speculation, it's calling as to whether this witness remembers indicating that in the past.
You remember that?
No, I don't remember.
So then you wouldn't remember the answer that you gave?
I know what I think now, but I don't remember the answer I gave.
No, I don't want to know what you think now. You can imagine that's
Okay.
not going to help.
Yeah.
Do you remember in the conversations that you had with the FBI agent that Miss Brady referenced you, there was a questionnaire, in fact, that you had to put things down on?
Yes.
And do you remember being asked the question, who the defendant values or what the defendant values above all?
It may have been there.
Judge, I'm going to object to relevance and speculation.
Overruled?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
It may have been there. There were a lot of questions, so.
If you had given an answer back then on that, I think it was July 23rd or 24th, would you trust that that was the accurate answer?
Yes.
You remember giving the answer he valued himself the most?
If I gave that answer, that's the accurate answer.
I don't have any further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Do you have any recross?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, the jury may have some questions for you, Ms. Data. Let me check and see if there are any questions. No, there are no questions. All right, may Ms. Data be released from her subpoena? Mr. Brockler,
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
may she be released from her subpoena?
Yes, sir.
All right, any objection?
I'd like to keep her under subpoena.
All right. Ma'am, you're free to go for now, but you're subject to being called again.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, can you approach Mr. Brockler and Ms. Brady for just a moment, please? All right. Members of the jury, I've given you this instruction throughout this trial. I want to remind you that the defendant is presumed innocent, and that presumption of innocence stays with him and must be given effect by the jury throughout the trial. Okay? All right. With that, Ms. Stitch McGuire, you may call your next witness.
Kelly Lewis.
Good morning. Good morning. Could I have you raise your hand for me, please, so that I can administer an oath? You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, please be seated. You can hand me that exhibit here. Thank you. Could you please tell us your full name for the record, and please spell your first, middle, and last name?
Kelly Nicole Lewis, Kellylylewis.
Ms. Tish McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, I was.
Could you please tell the jury about who you went to the movie theater with that day?
I went with my friend Josh.
If I could approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1142.
Yes.
Do you recognize that diagram, Ms. Lewis?
Yes, I do.
Does that fairly and accurately represent where you and Mr. Moore were seated in the theater that night of July 20th?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1142 and ask to publish.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, without objection, it is admitted and it may be published.
If I could please have 1142. All right, and there's a little mouse in front of you, Ms. Lewis.
Okay.
If you could use that to just point out on the diagram where you were seated and where Mr. Moore was seated.
Okay. If I could get it there. Sorry. The K indicates where I was sitting, right there, and the J indicates where Joshua was sitting.
All right, and did you have an opportunity to see a shooter in the theater that night?
Yes, I did.
And could you please show the jury on the diagram where you notated that? The
Yes.
first place you saw the shooter, if you could show.
It's not moving. Oh,
Okay, sorry about that.
no worries. Right here.
All right. Now, did you need to seek any and you can take that down, thank you. Did you need to seek any medical attention as a result of what you witnessed in the theater that night?
Yes, I did.
And please tell the jury about what you had to do.
I was treated for exposure and burns from what may have been gas or pepper spray, something like that.
Did you go to the hospital to seek that treatment?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what hospital it was?
Rose Medical Center.
I have no further questions for this witness. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, any cross-examination?
No.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions. May this witness be released from her subpoena?
Please, thank you, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, Ms. Lewis, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Yusuf Garbi.
Good morning.
Hello.
Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, please be seated. You can hand me that exhibit. Susan. Sir, could you please tell us your full name for the record, and please spell your first, middle, and last names?
My name is Yusuf Mekki Garbi, YOUSEF MEKKI
Ms. Tish McGuire.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did you go to the movies with that night?
A buddy of mine, his name was Luis.
How did you guys decide to go to the movies that night?
Well, I drove, and his mom bought tickets.
What time did you guys arrive at the movie theater that night?
Approximately 10 o'clock p.m.
Where did you guys find seats in the theater?
I wanted to sit higher up, get a better view of the screen. So we were approximately 5 to 7 rows down from the top.
Right, Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1127.
Yes.
Do you recognize that diagram?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it fairly and accurately represent where you were seated in the theater that night and what you observed on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1127 and ask to publish.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-1127 is admitted and may be published.
If I could please have 1127. Thank you. All right, Mr. Garbi, there is a little mouse in front of you that is difficult to use. But if you could please point out for the jury where you were seated and where Luis was seated.
The Y represents myself. I was sitting there, and then the L represents Luis, and he was sitting right next to me.
All right, thank you very much. Could you please tell the jury what happened in the theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012?
I don't remember much. I remember hearing the canister go off, or I don't even know what I thought it was, but I remember the popping sound. And there was so many people in there, so many kids from the high school I went to. I just had assumed it was somebody doing something immature. So I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then next thing I know, I noticed an orange flare coming down from in front of me, so I grabbed Luis and I pulled him down, and I told him to exit towards the upper left.
Now, how old were you and how old was Luis at the time?
I was 16 years of age, and Luis, I believe, was 13 or possibly 12.
So what happened after you pulled Luis down?
After I pulled Luis down, he asked me if they were gunshots, and I told him I think they were. So I told him if he crawled, to the left and go up, there's an exit out there. And then I remember I pulled my phone out, and I initially had called my mom.
Objection as to relevance.
Sustained.
All right, so what happened after you called your mom?
I hung up before she could even answer, and I thought I should probably call the police.
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
So then you called the police.
And I dropped my phone, and I remember I kept trying to move, but my leg had slipped down to the seats in front of us, so my right leg was like behind the seats in front of me, and then my left leg was on the row I was sitting in, and I remember I couldn't move very much because I was slipping.
Okay, why were you slipping?
At the time, I didn't know I was covered in my own blood, but I know that I was I felt the wetness, so I took my shirt and I wiped my face, and then I realized I was slipping in blood, and then I just felt like I couldn't move, I couldn't walk, I couldn't crawl.
What's the next thing you remember in the theater?
I remember the people behind me, they told me, like, yo, can you crawl to the left? We're trying, they just wanted me to keep crawling, and I told them I couldn't move.
Do you remember anything after that?
No.
Did you completely black out at that point in the theater?
Yes.
How many days later did you wake up?
I think it was 8.
8 days later, where did you wake up?
In University Hospital.
Had you been in a coma during that time?
Yes.
Okay. Please tell the jury about what injuries you sustained as a result of the shooting.
I obtained quite a few injuries. I suffered a gunshot to the head where the bullet still remains. And then I also suffered a bunch of buckshot from the shotgun. And I've got some pellets in my arm, my throat, and I think one in my head as well.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 2119, 4537, 2120, 2121, 4532, 4533, 4534, 4535, and 4536.
Yes.
Mr. Garvey, please take a look at all of those photographs and let me know when you've had a chance to do that.
I'm done.
Great, thank you. Do they fairly and accurately represent the injuries you sustained as a result of the shooting at the theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibits 2119, 4537, 2120, 2121, 4532, 4533, 4534, 4535, and 4536.
Any objection?
Your Honor, if I may just have a moment to ask the prosecutor a question.
Yes.
Your Honor.
All right, without objection, P-TR-2119 through 2121 inclusive are admitted and may be published, as are P-TR-4532 through 4537 inclusive.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I could publish, Your Honor.
You can publish all of them.
Thank you. If I could have 2119. All right, Mr. Garvey, could you tell the jury about what you can see on your face in this diagram?
So all of this on my cheek right here, it's all damage from the buckshot that came from the shotgun, as well as at the top of my forehead, you can see along my hairline. If I could get the mouse to follow. Yeah, there's also more damage from the buckshot. Pretty much any indentation on my face is from buckshot.
Could I please have 4537? All right, and if you tell a jury what they're seeing in this photograph.
This is a picture, like the only picture of myself after my skull was put back into my head. That's the incision line, and then above my eye is where the bullet actually went in. You can see it's seeping blood a little bit, starting to heal.
So the doctors had to actually physically remove your skull from your head in order.
Objection, Your Honor, to leading
Sustained.
confrontation.
Sustained, and it's been asked and answered.
All right. If I could please have 2120. Right. What's the jury seeing in this photograph?
This is once again my incision, a little bit more healed. You see the main one that starts from right above my ear and continues all the way up to the top of my head. And then that second spot, looks kind of like a bald spot, is where a bullet seemed to have grazed me.
Can I please have is this 2121? Sorry. Okay, if I could have 2121, please. All right, so the jury, what they're seeing here?
So this is more from like kind of like a bird's eye view perspective. You can see the top of my incision that leads to where you see some shrapnel. Some buckshot damage. The light pink spots. That's what those are.
Could I please have 4532? All right, what does this photograph demonstrate?
So the soft pink spot on my arm, the center of it, that's just one of the buckshot had exited from my arm there.
All right, if I could have 4533.
So the one on the right is actually a mole, but the one on the lower left is another exit wound from the buckshot.
All right, if I could have 4533. Or 4534.
And then this is again two exit wounds from where I had been struck by buckshot.
I have 4535.
This could potentially have been some damage done by the IVs or exit wounds from buckshot.
And 4536.
And then you see the white line, which is just a scar that happened during that night. And then above that, you see a soft pink wound, and that was also an exit wound from the buckshot.
Thank you. Do you have any injuries that are lasting as a result of the shooting?
Objection to relevance.
Overruled. Goes to the permanency of the injury.
You can go ahead and tell the jury.
I've got a bullet in my head. I'm about to be 20 years old, and I'll have to live the rest of my life with this
Good
bullet.
objection at this point.
Sustained.
Do you have any lasting cognitive issues as a result of the shooting?
Yeah, my frontal lobe was pretty destroyed from the gunshot. I've got learning disabilities and memory disabilities.
Right. Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
All right, any cross-examination?
No, thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions. May Mr. Garvey be released from his subpoena?
Please, thank you, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No.
All right, Mr. Garvey, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Jasmine Kennedy.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand for me, please, so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, please be seated. Can you hand me those exhibits? Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you please tell us your full name for the record, and please spell your first, middle, and last names?
My
My name is Jasmine Renee Ann Kennedy, JasmineReneeAnnKennedy.
Ms. Teach McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, ma'am.
Who would you go to the movies with that night?
A bunch of coworkers from Red Robin.
And do you know their names?
Yes.
Who are they?
They are Christina Bloch, Edgar, Jackie, Chelsea. I believe Edgar. Edgar, yeah. Edgar. You're welcome. Farah, Jackie. Can't even remember all of them right now, honestly.
Was Alex Sullivan one of them?
Alex Sullivan was one of them.
What time did you get to the movie theater that night?
We got there around 6:30.
What'd you do while you waited for the movie to begin?
We just played games and goofed around.
Do you remember anything particular about the previews that night?
I remember a Superman preview where Alex got really excited and he cheered because Superman was his favorite hero.
What happened during the movie theater that night?
I remember a man walking outside and then coming back in and throwing something over the crowd. And I thought it was somebody playing a joke on us.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1138.
Yes?
All right. Ms. Kennedy, does that diagram fairly and accurately represent where you were seated in the movie theater that night?
Yes.
All right, Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1138.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-1138 is admitted and may be published.
All right, and Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I ask Ms. Kennedy to approach the 3D model and describe where she was seated in the theater that night?
Yes. Why don't you take the handheld microphone with you, please?
All right, Ms. Kennedy, if you could show the jury approximately where you were seated that night.
Okay. I was about right around this area, I believe.
Okay, and do you know who's seated on either side of you?
I had Christina on my right and Maria on my left.
Okay, and where was the area where you saw someone throw the canister from?
Generally around this area. I couldn't tell you the exact spot.
And had you seen where it came from?
I believe it was this lower corner by the emergency exit.
So is that the area of there?
Yeah.
From there?
I can't reach over there.
You're all right. Okay, what do you remember happening after that?
I remember screams and loud gunshots, and then my friend Christina knocked me to the ground because I was still kind of oblivious to what was going on because I really wanted to watch the movie. And next thing I know, I'm on the ground and the floor is completely wet, and all I can think of is I want to call my mom.
All right, what happened after you wanted to call your mom?
I talked to Christina a little bit, and then I called my mom, and I couldn't get a hold of her. So then I called my dad, couldn't get a hold of him, and then I contacted my neighbor.
Now, how old were you at the time, Ms. Kennedy?
I was
Objection to
19 years old.
I'm sorry, the objections as to relevance, you've taken so overruled.
And can you tell the jury again how old you were at the time?
I was 19.
What happened after you didn't get any successful phone calls?
Officers came over and actually picked me up and carried me out through the emergency exit and set me down.
Now, did you remember a time in the theater when you recalled getting shot?
I couldn't tell you exactly when, but I remember my friend Maria tried to get me to follow her to go and run and leave, but I went to get up and then I felt a burning sensation in my leg and I completely collapsed back to the floor.
And could you see your injury at that point in time?
No.
Okay. So then police officers came to the theater and you were carried out by police officers?
Yes.
Okay. And placed out on the sidewalk? That would be that back sidewalk over there?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I couldn't see exactly.
You can go ahead and take your seat, Ms. Kennedy. Thanks. Were you transported for medical treatment?
Yes.
Do you recall how you were transported?
I was placed in an SUV.
And were you brought to a hospital?
Yes.
What hospital were you brought to?
Children's Hospital.
Okay. What injuries did you sustain as a result of the shooting?
I had a shattered tibia. It was come in 2 pieces.
All right. And how many surgeries did you have to have?
I have had 4.
Okay. Could you tell the jury about the first surgery?
The first surgery, I had a metal rod placed through the center of...
Excuse me, to interrupt, I'm going to object at this point to 403.
It's consistent with my order, but keep it within my order. So
It's the extent of our
testimony.
injuries, Your Honor.
Hold on. Brief testimony related to the nature and extent of the injuries. Go ahead.
You can go ahead and take a sip of water if you want. Ms.
It's
Kim.
okay. I'll wait.
Okay. Well, tell the jury about that first surgery, just briefly, what they did in that first surgery.
They placed a rod and 5 screws into my leg.
And the second surgery?
I had a muscle flap done, and they shaved my bone down, and then I had a skin graft.
The third surgery?
A bone graft.
Where did they graft the bones from?
My hip into my tibia.
And the fourth surgery?
I had screws removed from my knee.
All right, Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 2115 and 2116.
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy, do those pictures fairly and accurately represent the injuries you sustained at the theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibits 2115 and 2116.
Any objection?
No further objection.
Were these subject to my amended order D98B?
They were.
Okay. Give me just a second. All right, for the reasons articulated in amended order D98B, and without further objection, P-TR-2115 and 2116 are both admitted and may be published.
If I could please have 2115. All right, could you please tell the jury what they are seeing in this photograph?
You are seeing me laying in the hospital bed with my leg half bandaged.
All right, if I could please have 2116. Please show the jury what they're seeing in this photograph.
That is a bunch of gauze placed into my leg to keep my leg from bleeding.
All right, thank you. Ms. Kennedy, did you ever see your friend Alex Sullivan alive after July 20th of 2012?
No.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination?
No.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions for Ms. Kennedy. May Ms. Kennedy be released from her subpoena?
Please, thank you, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No.
Ms. Kennedy, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Bear Sudani.
Good afternoon. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, sir. All right, please be seated. You can hand me those exhibits. We can move those cups out of your way there if you wish. Could you, is there water in there?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was.
There is some more here. You can take some from this picture.
I'll pour her some, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Could you please tell us your full name for the record, and please spell your first, middle, and last names?
Farah Karen Osama Sudani, Farrah, KarenOsamaSoudani.
Ms. Tish McGuire.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes.
How long prior to July 19th had you purchased tickets to the movie?
Roughly a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks.
What time did you arrive at the theater that night?
Give or take 10:45 p.m.
Who did you arrive with?
Tony and Bryson Billapondo.
Who were you meeting when you got to the theater?
Our other coworkers from Red Robin were already there, and I also had 4 other friends who were joining us later in the evening.
I think we know who the Red Robin crew is at this point. So who were your other friends that you were meeting there?
Mike White Sr., Mike White Jr., Paula, what's her last name? Adams, and Michelle Baker.
And who was Mike White Jr. to you at the time?
We were dating. He was my boyfriend at the time.
What'd you do when you got to the movie theater that night?
Put our stuff down, saved our seats, went to the concession stand 3 times, went outside, hung out, just walked around joking.
All right. And where did you find your seats in the theater?
Up in the stadium seating. Sully was already there and had a row saved, so we had the entire row except for 2 seats on the left side.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1170.
Yes.
Do you recognize that diagram, Ms. Udani?
Yes.
Does it fairly and accurately represent what you recall happening in the theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1170.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, P-TR-1170 is admitted and may be published.
Thank you. And with the court's permission, if I could ask Ms. Udani to approach the 3D model, Your Honor, to describe what she saw in the theater that night.
Yes, please take the handheld microphone. Thank you.
Hello. Whoa, sorry.
All right, Ms. Udani, could you please show the jury where you were seated in the theater that night?
Right here, 5th seat in.
All right, and who was seated on the other sides of you?
Mike White Jr., Mike White Sr., Paula, and Michelle. I'm not sure the order of Paula and Michelle, though.
And they were on the very aisle?
On the very end, yes.
Okay, and so then you were 5 seats in. All right, what do you recall happening during the movie that night?
Where do you want me to start?
So when did something happen in your movie that was unusual?
Oh, just a little bit. Yeah, the movie had already started. I don't know what point of the movie we were at. Heather Snyder and I were goofing off, joking about something. But something was launched from the upper right corner of the front is the screen, and it caught my attention mid-air, and then it landed what I thought was to be just a couple of rows below us, but on the left side.
All right, what do you recall happening after seeing that canister?
I saw smoke coming from it, and I started hearing pops. At first, I thought the pops were coming from the canister. Bunch of my friends got down, and I just sat there thinking it was a prank. And then I thought it was fireworks, and then when I saw the pops going off and no sparkles or any firework-like thing happening afterwards, I realized it wasn't a joke, and Heather Snyder and Mike both grabbed me and pulled me down.
Could you show the jury where they pulled you down to?
In front of my seat, just on the floor.
All right, and how were your bodies positioned on the floor?
If you were to be looking at the screen, at first I was in the fetal position, laying on my right side with the front of my body facing the screen.
Right, and how was Mike White's body, Mike White Jr.'s body?
I don't know.
Okay, and do you know what Heather's body was like at that time? What do you recall after they pulled you down to the ground?
Pops were still going off, and so I just tried to cover my face, and then for a moment the pops stopped, and so I got up, was going to try to leave, and then all of a sudden I felt my side was soaking wet, and I felt it was warm, and I knew that I was hit.
What could you see of your injuries?
I couldn't see anything, but I looked down. At the time I was wearing a light gray t-shirt, and I looked down, and I could see just blood just starting to pour from my abdomen. And then when I realized I was hurt, I tried to like reach for Mike to get his attention, and then my intestines and my stomach actually fell out, and I had to bend down and actually catch my intestines and push them back in my body with my left arm.
What do you recall happening after you did that?
After I did that, I just laid down and told myself to stay calm. And then, but as I was going down, I said, I'm hit. And then Mike White Jr., it got his attention. And then as I fell to the ground, he comes over to me and said, where are you hit? And I told him my side. And then he just reached over my body, but like with his left arm, because his right arm was injured. He reached over with his left arm and started holding in my organs.
Could you tell if you had been shot in any other part of your body at that point in time?
At that point, I couldn't tell.
Okay. What do you recall after Mike was trying to keep your organs in?
He was holding my side, and then he kind of leaned back. He fell back. I could tell he was in pain, and he had been hit. I couldn't tell how bad, though. And then for some reason, I wanted to take my shoes off, so I took my shoe off my right foot, and I lifted up my left leg to take my other shoe off, and I saw that majority of my calf had been filleted off, basically, and it was only hanging on by a piece.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask for Ms. Danny to be able to show the jury her calf at this point.
Any objection?
Well, there's part of the front, and then the majority of it is from the back.
All right. Thank you. Good balancing act there. What do you recall happening next in the theater?
When I noticed my leg was injured the way that it was, I took my foot from the seat and tried to lay it down, not knowing it was on top of Heather Snyder's face. I thought I put my leg on a different part of her body, and then I kind of felt her kind of smack it away almost, or something, and then she got up and ran out.
Could you tell if any of your other friends had been injured at this point?
I couldn't tell, only Mike. Mike Jr., that is.
So what happened next in the theater?
Laying down on the ground, I couldn't breathe. And, are we done up here? Can I sit back down?
And before you sit back down, could you just show the jury where it was that you exited?
The front, if you're looking at the screen from the front right, down these stairs, front right.
Okay. All right, thank you. You can take your seat. So what do you recall happening next in the theater?
I was just laying there trying to breathe. I couldn't, pardon me, I couldn't breathe. And, I had to stare up. I didn't even have the strength to look around me and see if anyone was okay. And I just remember looking up, and I could see the room is filling with the gas. I could just hear blurts of shrieking and screaming, and you could tell that people were getting hit when they screamed. And periodically Mike Jr. kept, after a moment, I'm not sure of the time frame, but he sat back up and had his hand on me. And at one point, I can't remember, his dad, Mike White Sr., had come back. At this point, the lights were already on. I don't know if the shots have stopped yet or not. But Mike White Sr., he lays over me, trying to get me to be quiet for some reason, and I kept seeing him look up and look around and then duck his head down. And I couldn't understand why, or why he was trying to get me to be quiet. But after a couple of moments of that, he took off his shirt, put it on my side, grabbed his son by his left shoulder sleeve area, yanked him over to me and said, "You need a protector." And then he ran out of the theater, I'm assume looking for help.
What do you remember happening next?
Just laying there on the ground. At some point, I looked towards the stairs, which laying down, it was kind of up. And there's this teenager. He looked like a young gentleman. I don't know if he was a teenager or just looked young for an early 20s, but just bleeding profusely from his leg in the aisle. And I remember seeing that kid. Couldn't have been more than 16 years old. And so I just stayed laying there, and Mike was kind of trying to help me keep my eyes awake, and then all of a sudden Michelle came back. That's Mike White Sr.'s girlfriend. She came back, and she's rubbing the sweat off of my eyes. And she's cursing at me, saying,
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Without saying what she was saying, what was she doing?
She was just doing what she could to keep my eyes open, to keep me awake, slapping my cheeks to make sure I didn't close my eyes, because all I wanted to do was close my eyes.
Were you eventually taken out of the theater?
Yes, eventually officers showed up. Again, I don't know the time frame. And I just remember seeing one show up, and he kind of took Mike White Jr.'s place and put his hands on my wounds in my abdomen. And then several more come. They're trying to assess me. They're trying to figure out a way to get me out of there because they couldn't pick me up. And then all of a sudden they bring in a backboard. And the direction I'm facing when on my back would be more stadium seating to the left, and the screen is to the right. So as I'm laying there, they rolled me on my left side, on my injured side, to try and wedge the backboard underneath me, but they couldn't. So somebody grabbed my right arm and yanked me to the aisle to where they were able to wedge the backboard underneath me. And then they picked me up on it, and they started taking me down head first, and then they turned me around. So I would go down feet first so I wouldn't fall off the board. And then we exited straight down on that right side out of the screen that the shooter came in, or out of the exit that the shooter came in, and then they laid me down outside behind the theater.
Were you eventually transported to a hospital?
Eventually.
What vehicle were you transported into the hospital?
In an unmarked cop car.
How'd you get into the cop car?
They put
Objection, relevance 401, 403.
Sustained.
Right. What do you remember about the ride to the hospital?
The seats aren't comfortable. I actually held my hand on the handle above the window because the bouncing was making my side hurt so much. I used whatever strength I could to ease the pain off of that. And then I yelled at the officer holding me
Objection,
in the...
hearsay 401, 403.
Without saying what you said, what happened next in the police car?
Sustained.
I looked out the window and saw the stars. It was a clear night, and then I could tell we were getting to the hospital because he had slowed down. The officer driving had slowed down, and while I was looking out the window, I saw the overhang from driving underneath the part of the hospital we were in.
How many surgeries in total did you need to have, Ms. Danny?
7, and then another procedure on my stomach.
Please tell the jury overall what your injuries were and what the surgeries had to do.
My injuries were, I lost the majority of the back of my left calf, part of my front shin. 3 ribs on my left side were shattered. I had a hole in my stomach about 1 inch wide, My diaphragm was damaged in several places. They had to reattach it together. My kidney was so damaged they had to remove it. They removed only what was left of my spleen. The rest was already gone. I had burns all down from probably like my mid-bicep elbow area. I had burns all the way down the left side of my body and on the inside of my right leg. They were dotted burns. They looked like chicken pox almost. And then I had a gash on the back of my left leg. Part of my left lung collapsed, and there was damage done to the lining of my left lung.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 2123 through 2126.
Yes.
Mr. Danny, please review those photographs and let me know when you've had an opportunity to do so.
Okay.
Did those photographs fairly and accurately represent some of the injuries that you sustained as a result of the...
Roughly, yes.
I have no additional objections, Your Honor.
All right, with that, I don't think, can I see 2123? Just the first one.
I don't think 2123 was subject to your court order previously, Judge.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to confirm. That's what my notes indicate as well. So P-TR-2123 is admitted without objection. P-TR-2124 through 2126 inclusive are admitted based on the reasons and rulings articulated in amended order D98B and without further objection. And they may all be published.
Thank you. Bye.
The doctor is removing the staples from my stomach. That injury, they had to cut me open in order to fix me up. And the cut is from pubic to breastbone.
Sorry, the microphone died on me. Could we please have 2124? Please describe for the jury what you're seeing in this photograph.
That is the area they took the skin from for my skin graft on the outside of my right thigh.
Can I please have 2125?
That is the side view of my left calf after they removed the part of it that was hanging on. There was so much shrapnel they couldn't fix it, so they just cut it off.
Can I have 2126?
That's my calf after the skin graft and after it had already been healing for roughly a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Thank you. Mr. Danny, did you ever see your friend Alex Sullivan after the night of July 20th of 2012?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
Mr. King, do you have any cross-examination?
Thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions for Ms. Sudani. May Ms. Sudani be released from her subpoena? Ms. Stitch-McGuire?
Please, Your Honor.
Without objection.
Yes, please. All right, Ms. Sudani, thank you. All right, members of the jury, it's almost 12:30, so let's go ahead and take our lunch break. Since you agreed to do only 1 hour instead of an hour and a half, I've gone ahead and had lunch ordered in for you. So we've got lunch for you today. And then let's plan on meeting back here at 1:30, okay? Please make sure that you abide by all my advisements during the break. They all apply. I'll see you back here at 1:30. Thank you, folks. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Is there anything we need to talk about at this time on behalf of the people, Mr. Orman?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
On behalf of the defense, Mr. King?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. I'll see you at 1:30. The court will be in recess.
Please rise.